It's time for your daily dose of all things Chicago sports. This is the Daily Score. Now, here's your host, Mark Grote.
What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody is well as we welcome you into the Daily Score. I am Mark Grote. We do this show every single day on this podcast, the Daily Score. That's why it's called the Daily Score. And the NFL trade deadline is beginning to bear down on us. Bear down. See, get it? It is October 31st. So it is truly right around the corner. And, you look at the Bears roster, and I was just kind of going through this thought exercise before I came on the air today. And that is the question of who on the Bears actually has value. And it not just for the sake of should they trade somebody or, you sell off pieces. It's not necessarily where my brain goes when I'm talking about that. In part it is. But it's also just how many guys do the Bears have of value on this roster? Guys that you would consider either your core players or guys with whom you can win a game. And I was just kind of going through the list, and look, the obvious one is Jalen Johnson. We're gonna talk about Jalen Johnson and the fact that there seems to be some kind of talks going on with Jalen's representatives and the Bears about a potential contract extension. But Jalen Johnson has value around the league. Justin Fields has value around the league still. Yeah, believe it or not. And then it gets difficult. Realistic guys that have value. DJ Moore has value. Tremaine Edmonds has value. Eddie Jackson, his value is definitely decreased, but he's one of those guys who would probably fit in well in most locker rooms. And health has really become a concern with Eddie Jackson. He misses games every year. And his latest injury, the foot injury, I don't know. I worried that he's going to be put on injured reserve and be out for a while or even the season. I just have that weird feeling about Eddie Jackson. We'll see. And even if he does play, I feel like he's going to get hurt again. That's just the way it's been with Eddie Jackson, unfortunately. But I guess, we're kind of grabbing at straws. He's got some value. Darnell Mooney definitely got a little bit of value with his contract up. And then I don't know where else you go with that. Did I mention Tevin Jenkins, I suppose, on the offensive line? Obviously, Darnell Wright's got value, but that's not a realistic trade piece. Does Braxton Jones have value? Probably. A guy who started 17 games at left tackle last year. But yeah, there's not a lot of slam dunk guys in that regard. And so it's just symbolic of the Bears needing to get better, which makes it difficult to talk about the idea of potentially trading Jalen Johnson at the trade deadline, because Jalen Johnson made it clear on the Parkins and Spiegel show that he has made this clear prior to it, that he wants a contract extension, that he thinks he deserves a contract extension, that he would prefer it to be with the Bears, but he knows that he has value anywhere around this league. And, his thought process right now is that either he is going to get an extension with the Bears or the polar opposite, that he be traded. He is worried about being traded. He thinks that just because, Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn were traded, that anybody can be traded on the Bears roster. So, Jalen is definitely one of those guys with value. I think it would be absolutely ridiculous and stupid to trade Jalen Johnson. I hope that they are earnest about this potential long-term contract with Jalen Johnson. I don't care that he has 3 career interceptions, and I'm not saying all this just because he had the 2 picks last week. I think it's kind of BS that cornerbacks are graded a lot of times only on their ability to create turnovers. The covering guys in the NFL is probably the hardest thing to do until you can have your quarter, covering wide receivers for cornerback is a thankless position. And Jalen Johnson is very good in coverage. And I love the picks. Who doesn't love the picks? But to me, that is a false prerequisite for getting paid in the NFL, but it's seen differently by a lot of GMs, obviously. Jaquan Brisker was on the midday show, Bernstein and Holmes, and T was talking about how huge it would be to keep Jalen Johnson on this Bears team.
That would be very huge. Getting another defensive player, paid, and then also just for the future, just building, the secondary, keeping the secondary together, keeping the team together, be very huge for all of us. Especially the last couple games, the way we've been playing and things like that. You could definitely see that there's something special going, something special brewing. So that's very important. Like I told you guys last time I talked to you, like the greatest teams, the greatest players, they stay together for a lot of years. And I also see that with this team, keeping the secondary together and linebackers and certain players also. So that would be great for us.
Yeah, sometimes you hear Jaquan Brisker and you really hear maturity and knowing, the history of teams and teams that have stayed together and, the cohesion that helps. So, yeah, Brisker, I think he's like being genuine when he talks about that. And yeah, if you could, this is a budding young defensive core, Jalen Johnson and Jaquan Brisker, part of that as well. Let's talk about the defense while we're talking about, the cornerbacks and safeties and the secondary. Let's ask Brisker too. Why has the defense been so successful lately?
Trusting each other, playing with each other even more, with guys coming back, from injury or, whatever. Keep building that chemistry, great play calls, balanced play calls, whether we're being aggressive, whether we're staying in zone, and we're playing more man also, and just flying around and things like that. Coach Flus has done a great job with the play calls and putting us in a lot of great positions and things like that. So gotta give credit to him, which is very huge for us. And then guys just getting turnovers and flying around.
Yeah, playing more man, being more aggressive play calling from Matt Eberflus, and yes, finally beginning to force some turnovers. I got to tell you, the only rub I got on Brisker is that he does get banged up in games. It seems like at some point in every game, he's in that tent. And sometimes he is, there's been a real injury, concussion last year. This year, he takes a big hit. We're all watching from the press box, walks into the injury tent with the red hat doctor. The red hat doctor indicates concussion protocol. Brisker goes into protocol. Luckily, we found out that he was cleared, so he should be good to go. But I guess that's just my way of saying I worry about Brisker sometimes, like in terms of his health and his long-term abilities. But, he hasn't had the devastating injury yet, but he does get banged up. He does play a physical style of football, and I think we all appreciate that. But at the same time, you hope that guy keeps himself together. I can't not have something on Tyson Bagent in the podcast. Have to have Tyson Bagent going to be starting Sunday night against the Chargers. And so Jaquan Brisker weighs in on the rookie undrafted quarterback Jaquan Brisker.
I thought it was good for him to come in and get us a win. Just the way he like carried the game and how poised he was. I thought it was great for his first start. Coaches did a great job of preparing him, getting him right. He did a great job of getting himself right, preparing, and then also just being poised and just being a great teammate.
Yeah, all that is true. He does have a lot of poise. There's a presence about him when he is speaking. There was a presence about him in this game. First game he came in against Minnesota, I thought he lacked some presence of mind on the strip sack, on the interception, on dealing with pressure. But it seemed like over 1 week, and this is what's impressive after rewatching the game, is that it feels like he is a guy that can learn fast and adjust fast. And dare I say it, not make the same mistake twice. I know that we've heard that now from two regimes, the Matt Nagy regime and now the Matt Eberflus regime, that when they're coaching these guys, the only prerequisite is don't make the same mistake twice. But then they inevitably make the same mistake twice. Now, maybe Bagent is different in that regard. So that's really good to see. To watch him and see him, does he make those same kind of mistakes? Anxious to see what the game plan is going to be against a team that features a better pass rush. Our old friend Khalil Mack, who had a 6-sack game this year already, and it's going to be dialed up a little bit. And I can't not just seeing how Bajan does, but seeing what Luke Getsy does in terms of his play calling, because this is big on him as well. Like you can attach, like there is a lot of hand holding going on right now with Brisker, and the tightest squeeze on that hand is Luke Getsy for sure. So we'll talk more about that as the week goes on. The starting quarterback, we assume Tyson Bagent will speak on Wednesday. Coordinators on Thursday. I'll be in and out of the locker rooms and reporting to you right here on the Daily Score. Thank you so much for watching. As always, for our executive producer, Ray Diaz, I am Mark Grote for the Daily Score.